You want to see something that is sexual?
No.
That right there.
Yeah.
That's right here.
Ew. Oh, man.
That's in there.
That's gross. Hey, this is Hooper. I just want to clarify that Dustin is just holding up a screw and a nut, implying sexual things with it. He wasn't doing anything actually creepy. Just thought I'd mention that, because I can see how that'd be misleading. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 36 of the HooperCast. I'm Hooper, and this is my cast, not yours. Today, Dustin and I, hello, Dustin.
Hello, Hooper, and everyone listening.
Have compiled somewhat of a quick little, I wouldn't even call it a list, I'd call it like a little post-it note of movies from 2012 that we thought deserved mentioning, either for being very good or very bad.
Yes.
And Dustin, we agreed that it was really hard to just to rank 10 of them, let alone 5, I think.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of my top 5 that are actually in, matter in terms of order. But, yeah, so I guess let's just get to it.
Let's do it.
Let's be clear. This is not to say all the other movies we saw this morning were not worth mentioning.
Hold up. All the other movies we saw this morning?
Did I say this morning?
You did. How many movies did you watch this morning?
I watched one movie this morning. I watched Lockout this morning. It's not on my top 5, but that's a good example. Lockout was good, but it's not top 5 good.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of.
I didn't see any movies this morning. I was asleep this morning.
Well,
so
I guess it was more like this afternoon. So
okay.
It makes what I said even worse. Anyway, well, Dustin, do you want to get started with your how many did you maybe your number 5 or your 5, 4, 3 or something?
Yeah. How do you want to do it?
However you want to do it. I mean, if you feel like 5, 4, and 3 are around shouldn't even be numbered, then just we can talk about them in a cluster.
Okay. Well, I'll do 5 and 4 because they're not ordered.
Okay.
All right. So my number 5 and my number 4 are Skyfall and Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
I was obviously, as you know from listening to the Skyfall episode, which hopefully you did, and if you didn't, shame on you. Go do it.
Shame.
How dare you be a fan of the HooperCast if you haven't seen all our episodes. But yes, okay, so as you know from the Skyfall episode, I enjoyed the film, liked it a lot. What I realized in making this list was there wasn't really a whole lot this year that I was super excited about, after having seen it. But Skyfall was one of them. I thought it was a really good movie. I won't reiterate because I know we did a whole episode on it, but I thought it was a great film. And then there's Lincoln. Now, Lincoln, we didn't talk about Hooper, but Lincoln I saw fairly recently. I thought it was a really, really solid piece. There are some flaws in it. I thought the movie should have ended a little sooner than it did. And maybe 15 minutes before the actual ending was a good stopping point. But for the most part, I mean, the performances were really great. It was a well-written piece, and it did something that I didn't really expect it to do, which was kind of choke me up in a couple spots. And I don't know whether it was just Daniel Day-Lewis's interpretation of this man, or if it was just the writing. But I think this is a good movie for examination between the marriage of good writing and good performances. And so what happened is towards the middle of the movie, there's a scene where Lincoln is talking about, of all things, geometry, and how some some of the principles that Euclid wrote about for geometry were self-evident. And you know what those two words together mean in terms of Lincoln. And just hearing him say those words and deliver this story as he did throughout the film, you know, these little anecdotes, it was really kind of touching and showed me that he was sort of a hero. And obviously, I've always had a fondness for Lincoln, so maybe that's part of it too. But it was really just a really good film, and it moved me in ways that I didn't really think it was going to move me. And so anyway, yeah, I have to put that on my top 5 list. I enjoyed it. A really good, mature movie for Spielberg that doesn't have to do with aliens or whatever.
For children.
And, or children, or, you know, like absentee fathers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, or giant sharks or giant dinosaurs. He does a lot of things over again. And but this was a really good, you know, kind of mature movie. And if I had to pick a weak link of the film, I would have to say it would be Sally Field's performance.
That's interesting. I keep hearing that she should get like Oscar stuff, but that's one person.
See, the problem with it for me was that it seemed like she was trying to get an Oscar out of it. And very rarely do I pick up on things like that, but she seemed to be playing every moment bigger than it should have been. And I feel like a more subtle approach to some of her scenes would have done wonders. But instead, she kind of got like a big head and thought like, this is it. This is going to be the Oscar movie. And so it took me out of the film because she was trying really hard to win an Oscar. On the other hand, there's Daniel Day-Lewis, who, when she's in a scene with him, it's like, here's a guy who may very well win the Oscar, but he's not even trying. Like he is, but he doesn't even make it seem like he's trying.
He's not even saying the lines in the script. He's just saying his own thing.
He's just making it up as he goes along.
Just writing the movie around what he ad-libs.
No, I'm Lincoln. Now I'm going to say things that I want to say.
Yeah.
And he just makes it seem so natural that when he's in a scene with her, it just makes her like seem so flawed. And I like Sally Field, and I've always enjoyed her work, but this one seemed to be too much like, I'm going to get an Oscar. I'm going to get an Oscar. Like, look out, Meryl Streep kind of performance. So Anyway, that would be the weak link of the film. But it is a very good film. And if you haven't seen it, it's still playing in some theaters. It's already been pulled from probably most. But go check it out. It's definitely worth seeing.
It's been shot right out of theaters. Just like Lincoln.
Just like Lincoln himself. There was blood everywhere.
Originally, it was just going to be like a shooting pun, but then I realized he was shot in a theater, so it's... Give myself a little more credit there.
I know.
That was funny. Laugh, people! Laugh at my jokes. Okay, well, I'll do my 4 and 5. How about that?
Okay.
And it won't take as much time because we've talked about both these movies on the podcast.
Okay.
They are Skyfall and The Avengers. I kept them both on there. The Avengers was my number 1 for most of the year. Mm-hmm. It's just everything that's on my list has more like, it seems unfair to say, but they have more like cinematic value than a superhero movie. And I don't like to separate categories like that. I don't like to do that just because it's a superhero movie. Oh, it's ineligible to be better than more cinematic per se films. Let me just keep in mind. Well, I don't want to give away the rest, but like considering the amount of films that the Avengers beat to be number 4 on my list for the entire year is very impressive for a superhero movie to do. Yeah. I'll go ahead and give this away. The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, I liked that movie, but it's not on my list. I mean, and it beat that. It beat a bunch of other things I liked. I mean, it's the only one on my top 5 list that was there before, you know, I guess the last time I updated my list was in like September, I think. Yeah. So, and I moved things around, I reassessed them. So The Avengers is good, and I love it, and I love what it did, and I love what it's achieved, and I like where it's taking the superhero genre. It should be proud of itself for staying up that high.
True. The Avengers is on my list too, but it's not in my top 5.
Gotcha.
Again, it is quite a feat, but it's probably the most like I don't want to say the most important superhero film of the last few years, but it certainly is the most comic booky film. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I think it stands out among superhero movies. But it's not on my top 7. I mean, top 5. I don't know why I said 7. It is number 7, but it is not in my top 5. So anyway, yes, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that it that's one of the ones where I struggled to like, because I thought about taking it off my list. This is just to show you how really close of a race it is for all my favorite movies this year.
Yeah.
But I thought about it and I was like, well, if I take it off the list, I feel like I'm taking it off the list because I feel like others should be on there rather than I liked others better than it. I mean, I consider the amount of satisfaction I get seeing that movie, and that goes a long way. And I try and think about that with these other films, like not just first impressions, but rewatchability to me speaks a lot about a film. Sometimes a film can make a superb impact without me having to ever see it again. Yeah. But if I never want to see it again, and to me, I'm like, well, did I really like it that much then?
Sure.
And I can appreciate something I've seen once.
I'm with you. I like to judge movies on rewatchability. I like to judge them on like the amount of like emotion that I had in the film, and the amount that I was invested in the film while I was watching it the first time, the second time, the third time, whatever. And for me, as I I bought the Avengers on Blu-ray, and as I continued watching it, I noticed I was less engaged each time. And that's not to say that it wasn't still a good movie. It's just that maybe the plot's a little more thin than some of the others. So that's just why it's not on my top 5. But it's certainly a movie that you can rewatch over and over and over. And it has some really awesome scenes and some really great choreography as far as fights go. And yeah.
Yeah. So, and then Skyfall, of course, is on there. I mean, that was better than it was better because it was better than I expected. And I don't like to put stuff here just based on expectations, but it was a very solid film, very true to the James Bond character, and sort of like we talked about them sort of finding their middle with James Bond, like not making him so being true to the character and maybe the cliches of the character without being so hammy, and staying true to like the blunter Daniel Craig model they've got going on. And just really making a lot of decisions in that movie that will affect future films. Shows forethought to me, and that shows creative thought and investment, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too.
Let's go higher up the ladder.
Okay.
Are your top 3 tied?
Pretty. I mean, pretty much.
All right. Well, I'll go up one more then, because my number 3 can be by itself. My number 3 is Django Unchained.
Okay.
Let's keep in mind I walked out of this movie about an hour ago. I liked it. It was. Let me just give you a quick little history here. I saw it at the Crescent Theater again. And I've spoken about the Crescent a lot, but it was just nice to walk in, give the guy some money for a couple beers, and then pay with a free ticket voucher my brother got me for Christmas.
That's always nice.
Walk into the first row and sit in the leather recliner, put my beer in the little beer holder, and then watch Quentin Tarantino's final film in 35 millimeter in 35 millimeter. Not seeing it on a hard drive or anything digital, seeing it projected on 9 reels of 35 millimeter film was a treat. And so that it helps that doesn't put it any higher on the list. It's just I like to express it when I get to appreciate things like that,
Right, yeah.
It really enriches the experience. So it was good. It was long. Django's about as long as The Hobbit. It's like 2.5, 2:45. But it's one of those films
where it's a meaty movie.
Yeah, well, it's one of those films where every scene is interesting.
Yeah.
like I had to pee for a long time during the movie, and I held it because I didn't want to leave the room because I wasn't bored. Now some scenes they weren't slow, but you know how Tarantino is. He's very good with dialogue and characters and just making interesting conversation and not just in like a stereotypical way. Oh, they're talking about normal stuff. You know, it's just like I'm learning about these characters. I'm learning about what motivates them, what makes them tick, and what they're interested in, and that's why I'm here in the first place. So it was tough to pick a time, and at a certain point they started talking about like German like folk tales. I was like, I gotta piss, and so I just got up, and I did my business and came back, and the scene was still going on. I was like, okay, let me see if I can pick up, So very good movie. I like. It made me like Jamie Foxx, who I normally don't like. Overall, I still don't like him overall, but I didn't hate him here. Christoph Waltz is good again, and it's just it's a little last minute addition to the list. But I didn't like it as much as Inglourious Bastards, but it was a very good film and one that Tarantino should be and probably is proud of. And I like what he's doing. He's helping his overall list with this film. Yeah. Because I don't like half his films, but this goes on the good half.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, my top two are sort of tied.
Okay.
But you want to give me your...
Sure, okay. I'll give you my third one.
All right.
My third one is... I think we also talked about this on the podcast, is The Cabin in the Woods. For me, especially on rewatching this thing, The Cabin in the Woods really, really surprised the crap out of me. Like, I went into it, and I knew nothing. Like, I may have seen a trailer, but I didn't even remember it, like it had been so long ago. So I kind of went into this movie just as plain as you can possibly be. And just on the word of a friend who was like, hey, this is a good movie, you should go see it. And so I was like, okay. And so I went in, and I probably was like, okay, this is going to be stupid at the beginning whenever it just seemed so like cliched or whatever. But then as it kept going, I was like, okay, hold on. They're breaking this genre apart. And they're doing something really smart that is funny and still kind of scary and just completely revolutionary in terms of horror movies, which normally don't really... Horror movies aren't my thing. But this was, I guess, just super surprising to me that it was a movie that was about movies. And it was a movie that was about people watching movies and how we devour film, and particularly horror movies, and how over the years Hollywood has completely lost any sense of artistic direction with horror movies. And the fact that a movie like that could be made and could be funny and could be scary and could be, completely engrossing just shocked me so much. And then as I'm rewatching it, I'm just picking up on all this like minutia in the different characters and the way that they're presented. And then when they go downstairs and there's a room full of these old relics, like all the different things, I have to pause it to like look at everything. And then when, I hate to spoil it, but when multiple monsters show up, you have to just pause it and say, let me see all of these, because it's happening so fast. And it's just one of those movies that is so fun to watch that it had to be on my top 5. I just enjoyed the crap out of that movie. And so yeah,
that's good. Yeah. That was on mine for a while. It got knocked down. It'd still probably make my top 10. Yeah. I agree with everything you said about it.
Yeah.
No.
Good. You better. Or else I quit.
Okay, well, why don't you give me your top 2 and I'll give you my top 2 and we can just talk about them.
Okay.
I have a feeling at least one of them is in common.
It might be.
All right.
But I know one of them isn't because you've already mentioned it.
Okay.
My top two would be The Dark Knight Rises and The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey.
All right. My top two are The Hobbit and Les Miserables.
Ah, okay.
Why don't we talk about The Hobbit, and then we can talk about our differing ones.
Sure. For me, The Hobbit was the last review that we did, so it should be pretty fresh on people's minds. Mm-hmm. But for me, I kind of knew this was going to be a big one for me halfway through it. I knew this is going to be the movie for me for the year. And the reason is, I love Lord of the Rings so much that any time I get to spend more time in Middle-earth is just amazing to me. And so I loved it for that reason. I also loved it because I've always responded more to Bilbo's story than to Frodo's. And that's not, any kick in the pants to Lord of the Rings, but instead it's just saying, like, what Bilbo goes through, the arc that he has always, like, intrigued me so much. To say, here's a character who's so settled in his life, and, the little things, like the doilies, and the plates, and the china, and then to take that and say, let's put him on a quest that's going to change him forever. I think everybody can relate to that, and I know that I can, because it's essentially saying, why do you sit there? Why do you just do the same thing over and over and care so much about the little things when you could be out there experiencing the world and making a difference in it? And so to me, Bilbo's story was always more relatable and much more emotional for me. So there were moments in the film where I got choked up, or whatever, or just had like a moment of like a surge of adrenaline, and that doesn't happen very much in movies. Mm-hmm. And I just knew halfway in that this was going to be the big one for me, and I stand by it. I know it gets a lot of hate, both for the 3D and the 48 frames a second, and I know it gets a lot of hate because people feel like they're just putting random stuff in there to pad it to make it 3 movies. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed every minute of this movie, and I sat there with a smile on my face almost the entire time, and it's very rare that a movie does that to me. And Lord of the Rings did that to me, and going into it, I wasn't sure that The Hobbit would, but holy crap, it did, and I loved it, and so I stand by it. I think it's probably my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I like when there are a bunch of movies where someone's on a quest or someone's on a mission. Let's just mention Lockout since we already have. Yeah, you want Guy Pearce to succeed and rescue Maggie Grace from this space prison, but I'm really only interested in him succeeding because he's the main character.
Yeah.
Nothing about him or her has me emotionally invested in their success. It's just, hey, I want him to succeed, because if he doesn't, it kind of sucks. It's good to follow characters that you can identify with and that you can
root for legitimately.
Yeah, and you're afraid for their safety because you know them and you like them, and you're like you said, you're rooting for them. And
yeah.
And Bilbo's one of those characters where I'd be genuinely, like, if Bilbo didn't succeed, as a viewer, I'd be genuinely sad and upset because I understand his struggle and what he's been fighting for, you know. So that's a mark of a good film to me, and films that are more exceptional is emotion, not just identifying with the character's mission or their plight, in a physical sense, but what it would mean to them to succeed or fail.
Right.
And The Hobbit has all that. It has scope, and I agree. I don't like it. It actually makes me a little angry that people are so focused on the technical issues of this movie and they can't I mean, to me that's their fault for picking a format that might distract. I mean, you could say, like, well, they chose to see it in 3D so it could distract them. Maybe this is the first 3D movie and it ended up distracting them. I get that. But critics know better, of the formats. Yeah. And they knew that could have been an issue, and they should have known to look past that. And it bothers me that they didn't. because
Right.
I feel like it distracted them from a good story.
I agree, and I think a lot of them were expecting The Lord of the Rings, because a lot of the reviews that I read compared it to The Lord of the Rings so heavily. And to me, you have to understand that Tolkien wrote this first, and he wrote it as a children's comedy, essentially. And then he wrote The Lord of the Rings and was like, okay, this is going to be epic, and let's like make this like serious and junk. And so now the problem is that the people that grew up watching Lord of the Rings and love it so much are expecting the same maturity out of The Hobbit, but by its nature, it can't be the same, story. It's not
Right.
about a dark lord who's going to, destroy everything. It's about a dragon who stole some gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, the plot is a dragon stole some money from some dudes, and some other dudes want to get the money back. That is the plot in a nutshell. And it can't be The Lord of the Rings. So maybe that's distracting people too. I'm not sure, but I loved the movie, so.
Right. You want to talk about The Dark Knight Rises?
The Dark Knight Rises, anyone who knows me probably knew this was going to be pretty high on my list. I'm a huge Batman fan, so I'm willing to let a lot of things slide, and just because I love watching Batman. And does the film have problems? Absolutely. Does the film have things that distract me or that I don't care for? Yeah, sure. I don't care much that Alfred just up and left. I don't care much for, the whole thing where Bruce has like a bad knee and then puts on a brace and can kick bricks. Like this thing's like, there are things that seem so weird. I was thinking the other day about that line where Catwoman has like Daggett like held down, and she's like, "Where's the clean slate?" And he's like, "You mean the clean slate that destroys everything?" And I know he's like trying to get a rise out of her, but it's just so obvious exposition to me. And
Right.
and so there are things that bug me about the movie, absolutely. But the movie also brought us Bane, more specifically Tom Hardy's Bane, and I loved it. The movie also brought us Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, and I freaking loved it. Yeah, Christian Bale still does the voice, but like, I don't know. I just, this was another movie that when I was in, I was hooked. Like 4 seconds in, okay, I'm into this. And I remember seeing it that first time. I didn't look at my watch. I was not focused on, what the guy 4 rows down was doing, or what the people next to me were doing, or the people behind me were saying. I was in the zone. I was in this movie. That was probably because it's a Batman movie, but the point is, I was into this movie like crazy. And so yes, it has problems. I will be the first to admit that it has many problems, but I just love what Christopher Nolan did for Batman, and I love what he tried to say about Batman in this film. And so I'm willing to look past some of the problems that I have for it, just because I know what he's saying, and I know his intentions were good, and he was trying to give an ending to Batman. And I do have a problem with the last few minutes of the film, but I know what he was doing, and he was trying to say, Batman's never going to end, so let me end it. Let me write an ending for Bruce Wayne, because nobody else is going to get this chance. And because in the comics, Batman has to be continually re-updated and like redone. And then in cartoons, they last for 60 episodes, and then the new cartoon comes on. So this was his chance to create an ending for Bruce Wayne. And so, yeah, I have a problem that they were like, oh, Robin, but they still wrote an ending for Bruce that I thought was pretty cool and fit the character. And yeah, I liked the movie. No ifs, ands, or buts. Although, Anne Hathaway in that costume, there was some buts.
There was some buts.
There was some buts.
There's other stuff too. I agree with everything you said about the film. The only difference is, for me, it's just the issues that I do have with the film. They don't keep me from enjoying it, but they do knock it down on my list just because, to me, when I encounter those issues, I either sit there and hang on it, or I have to just disregard it. And to me, if I have to do either, then I can't fully enjoy the film. And so I can enjoy it much more if I just say, and move past it. But to me, if I have to make an excuse for the, not to say you're making an excuse, but for me, if I have to excuse the film for that, then I knock it down a little bit. It's still,
then you're working for the film, essentially.
Yeah, and so like for me, I'm just sort of, it's still far and away one of the better ones I saw this year. It just didn't make my top 5.
And see, that's sort of the thing about the Avengers that I have is it's a good movie, and as I rewatch it, it's okay, but like, why does this happen? Why do you hit Hawkeye in the head and now he's good again?
Yeah.
Why does Loki's scepter have to touch the exact center of a person's body to take him over? Oh, because it's conveniently also the place where Tony Stark has his arc reactor thing.
Oh, man, you're right. Why is it my number 4?
Sorry, Hooper, I didn't mean to dissuade you. But this, like, I know what you mean. Those are things that bug me, and obviously there are things that bug people about The Dark Knight Rises. I hate to say it, but for me, it's a Batman movie. Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm a Batman fan that can watch Batman Forever and be like, it's not the greatest movie ever, but it's a movie. Look, there's Batman. He's in a cowl. And then when I watch Batman and Robin, it's like, this is hilarious. It's like a Batman parody, and I enjoy this. And I hate the movie, don't get me wrong, but I love the movie.
I turned on Bounce the other day, and the Batman TV show was on.
Yes.
Just turned on the TV, and Adam was like, they'll never, those dastardly cowards. And I'm like, God, this
come on,
great.
Robin. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. And I guess the reason I excuse the Avengers a little more is because I suppose it didn't try and root itself in the same like gritty realism that Nolan's does.
Sure.
And I feel like maybe that's why critics came down harder on it as well than they would of the Avengers, because it seems, but critics always seem like they want that they're coming out to destroy a film. So if a film like The Dark Knight Rises has issues, then they're like, well, they'll speak in such hyperbole, like, Christopher Nolan wants to be so realistic, but why can't he? Why does he have the brace? And but then it's like, well, then why does he have a flying, hovercraft as well?
Yeah.
You know?
I also think it has a little bit to do with people's expectations. I mean, going into The Dark Knight Rises, everybody was expecting The Dark Knight. And going into the Avengers, everybody was expecting it to be laughable and like terrible. And well, except for me, but most critics were probably like, okay, this is going to be stupid. Yeah. And so when they saw like, okay, this isn't taking itself too seriously, we're not going to take it too seriously. Mm-hmm. But when The Dark Knight happens, and then The Dark Knight Rises tries to be just as serious as The Dark Knight, but it's not as good as The Dark Knight, then everyone's like, oh, and,
where's the trigger?
Where's the good movies? And so they where are the plot lines? And
where's Citizen Kane?
Yeah, and I mean, okay, but there's some cool stuff too. Like, I didn't think about this until recently. You remember how Ra's al Ghul was like in the monorail, and Batman's like, I'm not gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you, and he like flies out of the thing, and then the train like goes off the tracks and hits the thing. That's the same way that Miranda Tate died, because her thing, she was in a car and it went off the thing in the same way and hit head first, the same way the train did. And it was like a visual like thing, like a reference to Batman Begins. And the fact that there are so many of those, like I found this cool article. It was like visual references, and it was like way shots were framed to mimic like Batman Begins or The Dark Knight in a specific way. Like at the time when Bruce thinks that Bane is the son of Ra's al Ghul, Bane, there's like a shot of Bane that perfectly mirrors a shot of Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins. Like the composition and everything is like the exact same, and they've both just knocked Bruce down. And so it's like the way that things are framed and staged that make reference to other movies or to the previous films, it makes it feel more complete to me. And yeah, there are problems, but whatever. I don't care. I'm a Batman fan, and whatever. No.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what makes me, overall like The Dark Knight Rises is that it does complete the trilogy in a very satisfying way.
Yeah, true.
And it does make it a complete story, and that's ultimately why I have it and why I watch it.
Yeah.
And why
here's another thing that kind of makes me go, oh, why'd they do that? Is like whenever Gordon's like, the people won't know who saved them or whatever, or who are you? Or I don't know what he says. And Batman's like, it could be as simple as you putting a coat around a boy's arms or whatever. And he's like, oh, Bruce, and it's like, how many kids did you? That was so long ago. How do you even remember that, Jim?
How many orphaned children did you keep warm, Jim?
How did that make such an impression on you, Jim? So,
like,
unless that was like your first day on the job,
right?
That's the only way.
If he'd flown away, I would have been like, who?
Okay,
I don't.
What? I don't know.
I don't remember that at all.
Putting a blanket on a guy, was that directed at me? Did I even do that? I don't even know.
I'm so confused.
and then the stuff like, why does Batman still talk in the Batman voice, like when Catwoman leaves, like Catwoman like disappears, and Batman goes, so that's what that feels like. And it's like, but nobody's around. But whatever. So yes, there are funny things and like dumb things, but whatever. I like the movie a lot.
I always thought it was funny that that Joseph Gordon-Levitt like judges Gordon. He's like, it was for the good of Gotham. And he's like, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Hands look pretty dirty to me,
yeah,
Commissioner.
Gordon, if our Gordon would have turned around and be like, hey, fuck you, man.
Yeah. I love Gary Oldman's like conviction in that scene when he's like, when you have somebody to plunge their hands into the depths for you, and it's just like the way he says that like cracks me up every time.
Yeah.
Another good point is when Bane has like Batman by the neck right before he breaks his back, and Batman's like, "You were excommunicated by a league of psychopaths," and it's like the way he says it while he is being choked is so funny to me. But whatever, I love the movie.
My favorite part is
he's
like things. When Daggett's like mouthing off to Bane, he's like, "I paid you a small fortune." He's like, "And this gives you power over me."
Yeah, that's so good.
Because Daggett's face is almost like, "Oh wow, it really does it."
Oh god, what have I done?
Didn't think about that. I'd like to talk about Les Mis real quick.
Okay, go ahead. Don't spoil it for me though.
Well, our previous episode was about this. This film. So maybe in the same way that you are familiar with Batman, you're a fan of Batman. So am I. I have a similar attachment to this story and this music. We did a production of Les Mis in high school, and so I know the music very well. I know the story. I might have felt the length. This is also, my top 3 movies are all over 2.5 hours long.
Right.
In fact, I think every movie in my top 5 is over 2 hours long.
The Cabin in the Woods is short.
Yeah. But I would have felt, I can say objectively, I may have felt the length on this a little more than if I had not been familiar with the music. Because I knew, it's tough to review musicals or to tell people good things about them, because if you're not a fan of like the first couple songs, you probably won't be a fan of the rest of the music, and then the movie can be very long. But the depth of performance that I saw in this film was breathtaking, and probably the best I've seen all year, particularly from Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway. So that jumped it up my list. Just the fact that what it achieved technically jumped it up on my list, and including the fact that they're singing in the take rather than lip syncing to a pre-recorded track. And as having done post-production, you know how tough it is to mix sound. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to do this and get the music and just, some of the songs are done. There's a song called I Dreamed a Dream, and it's in the trailer.
Yeah, I know that song.
Anne Hathaway sings it. And she, at that point in the movie, her life is just so awful. and like really everyone's life is terrible in this film in one way or another. But her character's at her lowest point, and the entire song is in one take. And just what she goes through, and the cry, the sobbing, the anger, the sadness, all of it is within this song, and expressed right in front of you in real time. And I appreciate that because it really puts the performer's talent on display for the audience. And that really just put it right at the top of my list because of wanting characters to succeed. Even though I knew how the story was going to end for each person, like whether I knew if they would succeed or not, I still felt like I want life to be better for this person because by what they're showing me, they've earned it or they deserve it. And it's that emotional connection that we both have just mentioned we don't get from a lot of films.
Right. Yeah.
I think you'll be impressed by it. I recommend you go see it because I think you'll be very impressed by it.
I do want to go see it. I hate that I can't talk more about it with you, but I really don't know anything about Les Mis, and I have not seen a trailer in full probably at all for it. So, but I do know that song, but I didn't know that song was from Les Mis. I just thought it was random, Broadway song.
Nope,
and so
it is,
I just like I'm going to go into this completely clean.
Yeah,
and we'll see what happens, but I did see like a behind the scenes thing or whatever where they were talking about the music, and the fact that they were doing it that way, as opposed to lip syncing or whatever, is impressive to me, if only because it's out of the ordinary. Like it's trying to push for something different. And so to me that sets it apart from the crowd, and I do think that it's likely to make a good impression on me. So.
Well, what I also like, I mean, you could liken it in a black and white similar scale that performance capture has gotten to where it is a technical choice that assists performance.
Yeah,
like the fact that they allow them, like, okay, you can focus on singing. And it's weird because I was afraid that they would do that. Most of the melody would be lost, and they would sort of speak the lines. Yeah, and I hate that. Yeah, that does not happen here. I'm not saying they sing every song like on melody, on tempo, but it is not distracting. They were very aware of what would be pushing that too far or what might be off-putting to people, and. If it doesn't bother me, who knows the music and has heard the songs hundreds of times, the same way each time, it shouldn't bother maybe someone like yourself going in cold. That's why it's such a great achievement to me is that it was a way not only to do something different but to assist the performers and free them up to really experience and display emotion more. So. That's why it's my number one, I think. Did you compile a bottom 5?
I did 3.
Okay.
I didn't know how many we were going to do.
I had a 5 just because I looked on my list and I was like, there are 5 I really want to talk about that I hate.
Okay.
Pretty sure I know one of them.
Okay, guess.
I'm sure The Amazing Spider-Man is probably one.
Ding, 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 ding!
Well, let's talk about that one. That is my number one, most hated film of the year. So let's just start out with that one.
That's also the one that I hate the most.
Yeah.
Talk about unnecessary. This movie.
To me, like a movie qualifies for worst of the year for a number of reasons. It could be any or all of the reasons. One is just, was it even necessary to be made? Was it entertaining? Did it do anything different? And was it offensive? Yeah. And this one was all of those, all of the questions.
This is like, we already had a steak dinner, like a steak and a baked potato, and then the waiter brings out a bowl of Cheerios and goes, "Here you go. This is just as good, right?" And you're like, I'm not even hungry anymore. Why do I want this? That's exactly what that is. And this doesn't even compare to the steak and baked potato I just had.
That's pretty much, yeah. I mean, if you want to hear our complete thoughts, head to episode 23 and listen to our full discussion of why this movie is so shitty. Yeah, just the fact that this... I don't know if this was made... look, part of any movie being made is money. Let's get that straight right now. Like, and even Les Mis, the reason studios make it is because it will make money. So even if the film is intrinsically good, it's ultimately made because people are going to get paid for it. So you can say anything's made for money. I'd like to remove that. Let's just go ahead and remove that factor of filmmaking from the table indefinitely. Because I'm sick of people saying, well, it's for money. Well, no shit. Of course it was.
Yeah, exactly.
But this film was not necessary. It was not just a money grab. And they did a couple of different things that we recognize, you know. Yeah. With like their practical stunts and all that. That was fine. You know, and their casting. But the writing and directing was just atrocious.
Yeah. Oh, it was terrible. Things happened that made no sense, and they changed things just for the sake of changing them. Mm-hmm. But the biggest offense that I take to this movie is I absolutely love the character of Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. And he was such an original creation when he first came out, and still is, especially in the superhero world. Mm-hmm. And they made me hate him.
He is absent from this film. That is not Peter Parker.
No. They legitimately made me hate a character that if you ask me right now, I would say is one of my favorite fictional characters ever written by anyone in the known universe. Mm-hmm. That's probably a little hyperbolic, but the fact remains, I love that character, and they made me hate him.
Yeah. Just the fact that the world is always against Peter in some way or another. Like, in some way, Peter Parker never gets what he wants. Like, and that's something that Sam Raimi always understood about the character, you know. And
when things go good for Peter, you have to knock him down 2 pegs.
Yeah, like that's something that even like every artist that's worked on Spider-Man, like in the comics, you know, even the current ones who did that shitty storyline with him switching bodies or something with Doc Ock, this was awful. But even they were
we should do a whole podcast on that.
But
that's not even movie related.
Even they were like, said, you know, the story has really always been about why Peter, you know, making life as difficult as possible for Peter Parker.
Yeah,
and
but see,
they took a little too far
in that. Even in that terrible issue, they proved that they knew that character of Peter. That what had to happen for him was to make a mark on somebody else, which he does on Doc Ock. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I'm sorry, and also I'm not sorry because it's a terrible piece of fiction, but. They proved that they understand that guy. This movie did not understand Peter Parker.
Yeah, what the comics are doing is a stupid plot point that's just terrible and dumb and angers me. However, it's not as bad as this film because at least they're not changing the character. The character Peter Parker is the same. The qualities he has, they're just changing what happens to him. This does the opposite. Like, the same things happen to him, but he's a bastard, and he's not the same character. Not
like the biggest
not a
jerk in the world.
Yeah, not a sympathetic character. He deserves every bad thing that happens to him because he's a cock.
Yes.
So
no, very true. Like a dying man says, "Hey, don't go near my daughter," and he's like, "Yeah, but the best secrets are the ones that you break," and it's or whatever that awful last line was.
But those are the best kind.
But that was the last line in that movie. The final line was something so super jerkish. It makes no sense for that character.
Yeah. It tells people that being a douchebag is cool. As thin and boring
as the plot was, it could have been saved if I had cared one shred for Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well, yeah, I guess that's my number. What are your other two? And I'll give you my other four.
Okay. My next one is Man on a Ledge, which came out last January. This is a film that stars Sam Worthington, so there you go. That sums up the movie. It's a piece of garbage. It has him and a sickly looking Ed Harris, and they're robbing some stuff. It's okay. It's so completely like forgettable, and the plot is just awful, and the characters are just terrible, and the acting is awful, and everything about the film is just genuinely a train wreck. So, I hate that movie. I'm surprised I got through it, actually. And then my other one is Act of Valor.
Oh.
Did you ever see Act of Valor?
I started watching it the other day, and I was just like, I can't get into this.
Yeah, that's
I tried. I really did try.
See, I tried for a little bit and then gave up, but I did continue watching the movie. And to be fair, I played games on my iPhone through the second half, so I'm not entirely sure what happened in the second half. But that's a testament to how bad this movie is. Like, these people were like, okay, we got two... This movie's not going to be very good, so let's go ahead and get two gimmicks. And they were drunk at the time. And they were like, okay, the two gimmicks that we're going to have are the real Navy SEALs and real ammunition. And that'll be the gimmick. So we'll market it on that. And that's exactly what they did. And all these people that are like, Call of Duty, bro, they went out and they were like, this is the best movie ever, bro. And meanwhile, everyone sitting at home watching this thing is like, why didn't they get actors? Why are these Navy SEALs? Like, like the way they move is accurate, but they don't come across as real human beings because they can't act. So there you go. I hate that movie.
Yeah,
it's sold on gimmicks.
For me, yeah, like I was put off. I did prejudge it. I can't help it. What happened was
I prejudged the crap out of it.
Well, see, I prejudged it, but I still like sat down to watch it.
I did too. I watched half of it.
Yeah, what I saw in the bit that I watched was, these are not, professional actors. Okay.
So you get moments like, I'm so sad that you're leaving for the military, and then the guy's like, it's okay, honey, I'll be back one day and we'll be together with little Junior here, and that's the level of acting on this.
Well,
only
to me,
they're not like surfers.
Yeah, and I don't. Bad acting does not break a movie, but what it does is when none of your main characters are professional actors, and they're not even decent actors, it tells me whatever is supposed to be conveyed emotionally in this film will not be conveyed for me.
No.
Secondly, and so you're leaning completely. You want me to root for the characters specifically because they're United States military. Which, even though I will root for, I'm patriotic, I'm pro-military, I support our military, but asking me to do that in a film just because they're the United States military suggests that if I don't root for them, I'm unpatriotic. I don't like that.
Yeah, I agree that. Yeah, I agree with that. It's just, for me, the big thing was, well, A, it was sold on a gimmick. Mm-hmm. B, there was a whole lot of empty space. I like anybody, accuracy in movies. Mm-hmm. Like, to see how things are actually done is cool. But at a certain point, you have to realize when you're wasting the audience's time, like, just because I'm seeing exactly what these Navy SEALs do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to see them, like, put mud on their faces and go through the whole, like, the whole thing that they do, when you could show in like 4 seconds, like a close up of like mud going on an eye, and then like a close up of like, a guy's like glove going on or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those goofy, like awkward, close up, suit up things. And as goofy as those are, at least those don't waste my time. But to spend so much time doing like trivial things to me shows me that they don't care about like the audience's time. And I know there are people out there that probably think like, oh, it's really cool because that's exactly what they do. But I don't care. Cut away from it. Show me what the bad guys are doing right now.
Right.
Or there's so many other things that you could show me. It's just, there were some cool sequences in the film. But overall, I thought it was forgettable. And I thought it was sold on, stupid gimmicks. And the fact that the actors were not professional actors made me not care much for the characters. And I believe that if you don't have good acting, for me, if I'm taken out of the movie by the performances, that means I can't care for the characters. If I can't care for the characters, then I can't like the movie.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, there are exceptions that prove the rule, but look at like Breaking Bad, where a character does things that are so like abhorrently violent and just evil, but yet I still care about him because I know who he is and I know where he came from. And the problem is, here are some good men that are fighting for our country and doing really good things, but I can't care about them as characters just because they do what's right.
Right, exactly. Just because they make the right choices doesn't mean they're interesting people to watch.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I need more than that, and I'm sure there was a market for it, and I don't want to hate on the market because I like I said, there are people out there who enjoyed this film, and I know that for a fact. I know people who enjoyed this film, but the problem for me was, when I go into a movie, I don't care about seeing necessarily what's real. I like to see things that are, a movie is a place for something that's larger than life. And Lincoln is one of my favorite movies of the year. That all happened. I mean, whatever, but that's history, and that's interesting to me because Lincoln is a multifaceted character who has real issues to deal with, not just in his personal life, but in his life in the public eye as a president. And so, yeah, I'm probably going to care about him just because he's the president of the United States. But you have to make me care about him as Abraham Lincoln, as a man. And that's what Act of Valor didn't do.
I mean, if it had been a movie about, like, a redheaded kid runs track, I'd be like, well, I can identify with the character because that's my exact life story as well. But, if he's not interesting to watch, even I'd have to admit, like, I can't just side with this movie because I identify, not even because you identify with the main character, but just more that, like, this main character was in the same situation as me. I mean...
Right.
There's got to be some people in the military who would admit this isn't a great film. I can't even say definitively that it's not because I didn't watch enough of it. I didn't watch as much as you did of it, so I feel like I can't say that. But I can say I stopped watching because of these things that I found fault with that made me think like this is not worth my time to watch the rest of this movie.
Sure, and I understand. People might hate on it because I played games on my iPhone through the second half, but the movie drove me there.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
at least, I did keep it on. I was still, gathering information from the film for that second half. I wasn't engaged in it. But I wasn't engaged in it in the first half. My mind was wandering anyway. Like, oh, I wonder how this camera setup was. Or I wonder where the lights are. And I wonder what's happening here. And when I wonder about things like that, that takes me out of the movie, and that goes against the movie. In movies like The Hobbit, I never thought, oh, gee, I wonder what the camera setup is here. Like, oh, this is so cool. It was because I was completely engrossed in the story. And that's the mark of a good film for me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we're two people who don't normally, like, do other stuff while we're watching films. So
Yeah.
The fact that you were so bored that you felt like you needed to do something else to really even pay attention says something, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are your other 4? I'm excited now.
My number 5 is Prometheus.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
And Prometheus, it's I will admit it's barely my bottom 5, but it's there because of what we talked about, you know, which is that this film could have been so many things, but because of the written leadership of Damon Lindelof, it just became another bunch of interesting concepts that not only didn't fit together but didn't go anywhere. And it's so high on the list and almost not in it because of its visual attributes, like what it you know, the other interesting things that it does. But just giving me a bunch of concepts is fine if we're having a discussion about humanity and time and space. If you're trying to show me a complete story, then what this film does is nothing, and
yeah, exactly.
You know, isn't worth, and that drops it way down because then it's just like why am I even sitting here right now?
Yeah,
if you're not going to tell me anything.
There's some stupid things that happen in this movie too.
Yeah,
like, you know, a woman having a C-section and then running
and
like
jumping
crazy
and falling.
Jumping. Yeah. You know, there's some things like that, and you could say, oh, well, it's, you know, a super futuristic procedure that she had done. No, she was stapled up like that. That's what we do now, and you can't do that. Mm-hmm. All right, but anyway, so there are some stupid things in it, but like you said, there's some good things. I loved Michael Fassbender as David.
Yeah,
I think that was really phenomenal. But there are a lot of things that took me out of the film. I don't know that I'd put it on my bottom 5 just because there are redeeming factors to it, but I didn't care for it. I didn't think it was. It's like you said, it had concepts, but it didn't work on them. It was just, here's some concepts, and things were not explained that should have been explained, and things that were explained were stupid, and just general confusion about its relation to Alien made me feel like they couldn't make their mind up. And, you know, that Ridley was being indecisive, or Damon, or both, mm-hmm. and then just, oh, hey, look, it's a space snake. Let me play with him, even though he opens his hood just like a cobra does. Mm-hmm. Oh, that just means hello. I love you.
He's waving.
Yes, let me still stick my hand out to him, and, you know, just let him break my arm and then crawl in my mouth and kill me. Like, you know. Even though I'm a scientist, I'm a biologist, I should know these things.
Yeah,
but I don't.
If there's anything my profession has taught me, is to be more careful around things I don't understand or know.
Yeah, or hey, I'm a scientist and I just found a weird black snake, like worm-looking thing in my eyeball, but I'm not going to tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna tell my girlfriend, whom I love, and say, hey, sweetie, I think I'm dying.
Yeah.
There's something in my eye.
Might have something to do with this stuff we found earlier today, or this strange planet we landed on today.
Not to mention David just generally being a creep and being like, I'm going to do evil things now, but I don't really have a reason to do them.
He woke up one day and thought,
I'm going to do them.
How can I destroy everyone's life today? I know.
Yeah.
I'll poison this guy I have no quarrel with. You know.
Yeah. I'm just going to do this because I'm an android and I can do whatever I want.
Number 4 is The Hunger Games. I love the books, but that movie was trash. Not in the way that
I've never read the books.
The books are good. I would encourage it, despite the impression the movie left.
Okay.
As we discussed, the story is suited to a book, and a competent director would have brought it suitably to film, but he did not.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's really like, I don't know. We again, this is another one we discussed at length, the problems we had, but the shaky camera work alone is enough to make me not like this film, not to mention that they... whatever. Let's go to number 3, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance.
That's one I never saw.
I rented this, and I fell asleep watching it. It was so boring. I watched it at like 11 o'clock in the morning, too, so it's not like I was even tired, and I fell asleep. Yeah, I thought it would be awesome because Neville Dean and Taylor directed it. Not to say that they're amazing directors, but I mean, I'm amused by the Crank movies.
Yeah, they have a style.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, and I saw the trailer, and the trailer looked awesome, if you remember. Maybe you didn't see it, or maybe you didn't share my...
No, I did.
Yeah, I remember thinking, like, he's pissing fire. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And none of that amazingness is in the film. And it's just... it's such stupid things. And can the writer be an angel or something? And it's another one of those, like, weird, like, is this kid, like, an apocalyptic demon kid? Or is he, like, good? What's going on with that? And it's one of those that revolves around one of those, like, strange, like, kids. And if they're gonna, you know... And I hate it when movies do that, because then it's sort of like you're trying to copy The Omen, but like, what does this kid have to do with the plot? Why wasn't he a part of the plot earlier? Oh, it's because he's young and he wasn't alive in the past movie? But that's stupid. Like, I don't like it when there's a kid who's like an all-powerful MacGuffin / Deus Ex Machina. I hate that. And that's what this movie did.
You're Starscreeping.
I'm screeping? You're sorry.
Shut up, Hooper. I was hoping you wouldn't notice. Did you see that long pause there? Or I was like, hopefully he won't notice what I said.
You're screeping.
You start screeping.
Anyway, that movie sucks. So
yeah.
My number 2.
Well, I saw the first one and I learned my lesson.
Yeah, I saw the first one because I wanted to watch this one so bad, and I don't know which one was worse, to be honest. I'll say this for the Spirit of Vengeance. The action was better, but the story being ultimately more boring than the last one.
Yeah. And what's your number 1, Hoopa?
Well, the number 1 was, I guess, Spider-Man, but my number 2, but my final one is Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie.
Ooh, that's one I didn't see.
I watched it on Netflix this morning, like right after I woke up.
Oof.
Okay, I've seen their YouTube videos,
yeah.
and they're amusing, you know.
Yeah.
But that's where it should stay. The whole plot of this movie is that Tim and Eric get $1 billion to make a movie, and then they just waste all the money, and they make like a 3-minute film because that's all that was like able to be cut or whatever. I don't know. And so the rest of the movie is they owe these guys $1 billion, so. They skip town. They see a TV ad for this mall that Will Ferrell owns. And he's like, you could make $1 billion if you just come run my mall. And so they're like, okay, that sounds smart. So they go there and run the mall. And it's just stupid. It's dumb. Like,
yeah.
Most of the movies is like weird little gags they do, but they're not even gags. Like just some of it's like I say subtle for lack of a better word. Some of it's just like they run in strange ways. Weird, prolonged scenes, strange, like, repeated, like, come on, Eric, you know, like, stuff they do in their videos. But it's like, this is dumb. The plot is stupid. The jokes aren't funny. Everything, it's just a mess. And I watched it because I thought, maybe it's going to get funny. And then when it ended, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Well, okay, I know there's a market for it, and I know there are people that really love those guys. But I've never, like, even the YouTube videos and the stuff they did on Adult Swim, I was like, what? This is not funny.
Yeah,
and everyone was like,
good.
Isn't this hilarious? And I'm like, no, it is not.
Like, it's funnier in, like, short form, like, one-dimensional comedy.
Yeah.
At best.
True.
Like, I remember when I saw like 2 or 3 of their videos, and I thought they were all funny. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't know how many they've done, but whether I would think the rest of them are funny remains to be seen. But I can tell you this, they definitely don't belong in a feature-length film, or even really even they have their own sketch comedy show, because it wouldn't be good. It'd just be, they are not writers. They find entertaining ways to do, like, video tricks or sound effects that might be funny, but they're not good at writing jokes. It was not funny, and it angered me. Like, after I watched it, I was like, God, why didn't I just get up and take a shower and do something else today? Yeah. Instead, I chose to make this thing the first thing I watched this morning. I saw it for free on Netflix, and I still felt like I was cheated and wasted my time. So
you should have got stoned.
In fact, hold on, my Netflix is open right now. Okay, it's already out. I'm pretty sure I rated it 1 star, and then I pushed it out of my instant. Like I deleted it from my instant queue, But I think I also like watched 3 other things, so I could just get it out of my recently watched. Like I don't even want to remember watching this. You know,
I don't. Yes.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever did a podcast on this. Maybe we did, and I forget. The movie Looper.
We never did a podcast about Looper.
Okay, that's what I thought. What did you think about Looper? Did you see Looper?
I did see Looper. I liked it generally.
Yeah.
I did sort of. At the same time, I embraced and was also outraged by the whole notion of him pretty much overtly telling the audience, "Look, if we get caught up in all the time travel, we'll be here for hours talking about it. Just ignore the mechanics of time travel." And I thought, I can, because you're obviously not going to address it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, no. You need to acknowledge some reality here, so that we know what rules to follow. Otherwise, you're letting yourself free to just not have any rules for yourself
accountability.
To follow. Yeah, exactly, and I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah,
and I didn't appreciate Bruce Willis telling me that I should forget about the mechanics of time travel, because I was like, no, Bruce Willis, no, I will. Yeah, don't you do that?
See, that's sort of the thing that I have about the movie as well, which is just that you don't know the effects of time travel because they didn't say okay, here's what happens. You know what I mean? In Back to the Future, it's pretty obvious what they're doing.
Right.
In Looper, it's a little more ambiguous, but on the other hand, I think it was meant to be that way. I think it's a story. I mean, okay, to be honest, time travel is far-fetched and doesn't really make sense anyway.
Right.
So it's more of a backdrop for, or really like an inciting incident for a film, and it doesn't really revolve around much time travel.
No.
All you really need to know is that a guy's future self came back, and over the years he's become someone so different from the man who he is that it's hero and villain are the same person. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the film. It did not make my top 5, but it was pretty close. Mm-hmm. If only because it was an ambitious attempt at a mature science fiction film, and you don't get that very much anymore. I mean, this is an R-rated film, and these days Hollywood definitely wants everything to be PG-13 and sugar-coated. And this was a raw look at a science fiction world, and it harkened back to the 80s science fiction movies like Blade Runner and whatnot, where it's uncompromising look at the future. I enjoyed the film, but yeah, it didn't make my top 5, but I did enjoy the film a lot. And anyway, I was just wondering what you were thinking about it.
I mean, I liked it, and I agree with everything you just said about it. I mean, I ultimately, the time travel not acknowledgement doesn't bother me that much, because really the movie's biggest strength is its strength of theme about the differences between yourself, young and old, and what is important to you as a young man, and what becomes more important as you get older. So that's really what the movie's about. Everything else is sort of a means of telling that story.
It's about choices. It's about your influence on others and parenting even. So it's certainly a strange science fiction movie, and it's definitely not what I thought it was going to be going in. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah, and the reason I get angry at the time travel thing is because the movie itself contradicts. It shows it doesn't tie itself down to any one form of time travel. Whether you can whether your effects on yourself now have an effect on your future self, or whether they don't. Because then it's they're like, okay, well, me and him, it's once he comes back, it's a different. He's a different person. It's not. That's not me. But at the same time, it's oh, but if I get burned, then it shows up on his arm, so it is me, but it's not me.
Right.
So what the hell? It's if he comes back, then he's not the same guy, or it's not the same timeline because he's in it. But things from the past affect him. So, you know what I mean? It's just
It's the same sort of thing. Like at the beginning of the movie, they have a looper who doesn't close the loop, and so in order to get like the guy, like the old version of him, back, they start like chopping off the young guy's fingers and like legs. And
that scene is terrifying.
Oh my god, yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the most like ridiculously terrifying scenes of 2012. But it's like to the point where it's almost nauseating, you know.
Yeah.
That also probably goes back to like my big fear of losing a limb or a body part.
Yeah.
That's one of my big fears. And now that I've projected that, serial killers are going to come find me and cut my arm off. So.
Cut off your legs.
Yes. Hooper, don't put this in there. Oh, God. Oh God.
I will say that... oh, sorry, you weren't finished.
Oh, well, no, but the fact that they can do that, you know, speaks to one method of time travel. And then they go against it later. I can see how that would be a problem, and it is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, even, like, I can give it, like, I can appreciate... even though Lost's version of time travel is different from others, it stuck to one specific method of time travel.
Yeah. True.
And that's fine, because that's one of its own rules that it always did follow, was its time travel mechanics.
Yes.
I'd like to...
I mean, it made no sense, but it stuck to its, you know...
But at least it stayed within its rules in that realm of its storytelling.
Right.
The kid who... The little boy who plays the
Rainmaker?
The Rainmaker, Sid, is named Pierce Gagnon. He's just... And that kid is terrifying.
He really is.
Like, when I found his name Pierce...
That kid is going to grow up and kill people.
Yeah, like, he just... when that first time, like, where he freaks out in slow motion and just his eyes and everything, I was like... It was legitimately horrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, with a name like Pierce.
Pierce, exactly. Like,
I'm going to pierce you.
Your kid needs to be, like, menacing.
Pierce your heart.
Yes.
With my blade.
Yes. Well, I guess that does it for our best and worst stuff list for 2012.
Yeah.
Tune in next time for the HooperCast, which I don't even know what we're going to be talking about. Probably film news because it's January now.
we should do a bunch more top lists for 2012 and have like here's the best songs and the best video games. Even though I didn't even play many video games this year.
The only ones I played from this year are Call of Duty 2 and Halo 4, and there's so many more from this year.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll have to wait till we get a staff for that sort of thing.
I know, for real.
Okay, I can just have them be like, all right, play video games all day, and give me the best ones. Yeah. Anyway, all right, good people. Well,
how do you know they're good?
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Innocent till proven guilty.
Yes, it's true. Guilty.
Okay,
if you'll
good
listen to the
people.
podcast. Till next time.
Till next time.
Boop.
Now it's time to say goodbye. Good night.
Good
Sleep
night.
tight. Dream, sweet dream for you
and me. Tonight.
Sweet dream for me.
Sweet dreams to me. Okay, bye.
See ya. That's so random.
By any chance, if you guys do want us to do a particular list, you should email us at hoopercast@gmail.com. Any ideas you might have or lists you want us to make. Whether it's top 5, I don't know, YouTube videos of 2012 or songs or something, we'll do our best. Goodbye.